They told him to leave the building, not knowing he was the man who built it. He entered quietly, dressed in plain clothes that carried no weight of power, no shine of luxury. His shoes were worn, his shirt simple, and his walk unhurried. In a place where appearances shouted louder than character, he carried no armor but dignity. To some, he looked like nothing more than a passerby. To others, perhaps a lost visitor, or even an intruder. But to himself, he knew exactly who he was. The moment his feet touched the marble lobby floor, suspicion followed him like a shadow. Security guards shifted uneasily in their seats. Their eyes narrowed. Their hands moved to their belts, ready for confrontation. The stream of employees in tailored suits and polished shoes barely looked his way, but those who did wore smirks. A stranger among them, an outsider. And in their world, outsiders didn't belong. Whispers began to ripple across the floor. Who is he? What's he doing here? Some tilted their phones upward, hungry to capture a moment of humiliation. The kind of humiliation that could be uploaded, mocked, and shared for quick laughs. To them, this man was nobody, just another face to ridicule, just another stranger who didn't know his place. But what they didn't know was simple. The man they mocked, the man they dismissed so easily, was the very man who had built everything they were standing in. Years earlier, in a cramped apartment that barely fit a bed and a desk, Jonathan Hale had begun his journey. He was not born into wealth. He did not inherit his empire. What he had was far smaller but far more powerful. A dream, a relentless will, and a second-hand laptop that barely ran. Late at night, while the rest of the world slept, Jonathan typed away. His fingers tapped with purpose, his tired eyes glowing under the dim light of the screen. To others, his work looked like madness. To him, it was freedom. He coded through hunger. He wrote proposals through exhaustion. He faced rejection after rejection. But rejection did not stop him. It sharpened him. In the silence of his tiny apartment, he built the foundation of a vision. What began as fragile lines of code became a tool. That tool became a product, and that product became a company. The first office was not glamorous. It was not even an office. It was a garage. The kind of space where oil stains covered the floor and broken tools gathered dust in the corner. But Jonathan filled that garage with determination. He convinced a handful of believers to join him. And when the first investor shook his hand, the dream began to spread. From a garage to a small office, from a small office to a downtown workspace, and from there, the empire rose. Headlines soon followed. The youngest black billionaire, the visionary who built the future, Jonathan Hale, the genius behind the empire. He was celebrated, admired, envied. Cameras followed him, investors worshipped his vision, his company soared. But Jonathan was not a man who craved the spotlight. He trusted the system he had built. He trusted the leaders he had appointed. And in that trust, a fatal mistake was made. Because where trust lives, greed often creeps. The company began to drift, slowly at first, then violently. Innovation, once the heartbeat of the empire, was replaced with exploitation. Values that once defined the culture were traded for shortcuts. Profits became the only god. The boardroom, once filled with creativity and impact, became a theater for power plays. Suits raised champagne glasses over charts of rising profits, even as the soul of the company bled away. Jonathan heard whispers, a betrayal, a deal in the shadows. The board was preparing to hand away the empire he had built, signing contracts that would strip the company of its heart, its purpose, and its legacy. And so Jonathan returned, but not as the billionaire they remembered, not in luxury cars or tailored suits. He returned simply, quietly, without announcement, without spectacle. He walked back into the world he had created, not to impress, but to reclaim.
But the lobby did not recognize him. Instead, it mocked him. Security grew hostile. Employees smirked and laughed as if watching a comedy. Phones recorded, each one eager to upload the fall of a nobody. Online, clips spread with captions of ridicule. Stranger tries to sneak into billionaire's offices. Look at this guy thinking he belongs here. Jonathan said nothing. He did not need to. His silence was a strength, a shield forged from years of judgment. He had been here before, looked down upon because of the color of his skin, dismissed because of the simplicity of his clothes, ridiculed because of the way he carried himself. They judged not his vision, not his brilliance, but his appearance. And in their blindness, they exposed themselves. As Jonathan endured humiliation below, upstairs in the boardroom, the betrayal unfolded. Pens scratched across contracts, hands shook over deals. The empire was being sold piece by piece, stripped of the purpose for which it was built. Two stories played at once. Below, a man mocked for his dignity. Above, a legacy sold for greed. The insults reached their peak. One employee sneered his phone in Jonathan's face for a clearer shot. A guard pressed harder, pushing him back toward the glass doors. And then the tide shifted. The doors opened again, but this time, lawyers walked in. Calm, collected, carrying thick folders stamped with official seals. They did not shout, they did not argue. They simply placed papers on the desk. Proof, contracts, deeds, legal ownership. In black and white, it was written for all to see. Jonathan Hale still held 60% controlling ownership of the empire. The room froze. Phones that streamed laughter now captured silence. Security guards stiffened. Employees who mocked him moments ago lowered their eyes in shame. The same mouths that mocked him had no words now. The same eyes that ridiculed him now lowered to the floor. Jonathan did not smile. He did not gloat. He did not need to. His victory was not in humiliation, but in justice. His triumph was not in revenge, but in truth. For he carried the greatest lesson of all, that respect costs nothing, but it defines everything. How often do we judge by appearances? How often do we dismiss greatness because it does not come dressed in the garments we expect? Jonathan had been mocked, ridiculed, betrayed. But he endured, he reclaimed, and in the end, he revealed what true power really is. Power is not loud. It does not boast. It does not need to humiliate. True power walks in quietly, reclaims what was always its own, and leaves with dignity intact. And as Jonathan stepped back through the glass doors, the building behind him fell into silence. Employees watched with awe. Shame lingered in their hearts. The same mouths that mocked him had no words now. The same eyes that ridiculed him now lowered to the floor. Jonathan did not look back. He did not need to. The empire was his. The truth was his. His story was already written. Not in contracts, not in boardrooms, not in marble floors, but in resilience, in vision, in the quiet strength of a man who never forgot where he came from. And for those who had mocked him, for those who had doubted him, the lesson would never be forgotten. True power doesn't shout. It simply reclaims what is already his.